3 years. So imagine how that was. It was rough on my body. I started having migraines more often. I started having issues with my feet, so I had to get special inserts made. So it can be very draining mentally and physically. And I
Talking about that, Dr. Shamita, we talk about we were going to transition into pharmacist burnout. Because that, I was talking about how frustrating that can be when patients are getting mad at you about your technician is up front, taking care, being that forefront for the pharmacy and being that face of the pharmacy and taking in prescriptions and talking to patients and answering how long may something take. On the back end, we're here, trying to answer the phone and make that phone call to your insurance company to see what the holdup is, making that call maybe to the nurse or the doctor's office. In the process of doing that, drive-through is calling, asking, a question about an over-the-counter medication they may have, along with the prescription that they're picking up. And you're looking at your clock like, I'm here for like 10 hours today. I don't have any overlap. What am I going to do? I wanted Dr. Q to talk about that a little more.
Thank you, Dr. Tiff, for bringing us into our number 3 reason of pharmacist burnout. So yes, y'all, I mean, we've been talking for quite some time about all the things that pharmacists are doing, but we do face a lot of challenges. When we talk about that overlap, what we're talking about there is where a pharmacist might come in the morning, say they come in at 8 o'clock, and then they get another pharmacist, some relief to come in maybe like at 11 o'clock so that they can take a break. Well, that's not happening a lot. A lot of times pharmacists come in at 8 o'clock and they might get off at 4:30, and the next pharmacist comes in at 4:30 to give you like a 30-minute period to try and catch up on where you're behind. And then that next pharmacist takes over. So you're really there all day managing vaccines, managing technician workflow, managing verification, and sometimes having to fill in wherever the technicians cannot, and answering the phones, being the cashier, filling the prescription, and doing that drug utilization of review as well. So my friend shared this post with me, y'all, on Facebook, because she's not a pharmacist at all. I think when people see things, they've heard me talk about the pharmacy industry and how challenged we are, they'll just share things with me. So this one is about a post on a pharmacist that walked out of CVS. Now, let me go ahead and preface this for all of our viewers, letting you know that this is not about CVS, it's not about Walgreens, Walmart, or any other pharmacy specifically, because we're all enduring the same type of challenges, no matter where you are. So let me just go ahead and put that disclaimer out there. CVS, we are not coming for you. But for this particular instance, the pharmacist walked out and someone reposted and said, so my sister is a pharmacist and she's worked for CVS before. CVS has a track record of paying poorly, understaffing, and generally treating pharmacists poorly. I would guess the pharmacist had enough and was just done. I mean, it's a lot of extra years of school to be treated badly by an employer. So when I read that post, it brings up a lot of things for me, in that we always have been multitaskers, and a lot of us in the pharmacy industry, we pride ourselves in being multitaskers. But at the same time, when you're multitasking, you're also you're burning yourself out. It's a very stressful industry. And after about 3 to 5 years, you're starting to really feel it both mentally and physically as a pharmacist. And so that pharmacist burnout is real. A lot of times though, our pharmacy employees I will tell you, a pharmacist feels stuck, because you see where they talk about it's a lot of extra years, it's a lot of extra money to get the doctor of pharmacy degree. And then a lot of people have student loans. So they stay in the industry because they need to pay this money back. And they've assumed a certain type of lifestyle now that requires them to continue working. But needless to say, the environment sometimes can be very grueling and you get that burnout. So for my sisters here, what can you talk about in Pharmacist Burnout? When you read this post, what are some of the things that come up for you?
Well, for me personally, when I was in retail, I was what's called a floater pharmacist. So I traveled around to different cities and work. So some days I would drive an hour and a half. I would work a 11-hour shift by myself.
Sounds
I
familiar.
might have 1 to 2 techs who wouldn't even work all day. Then on top of that, I'm doing my daily duties of processing the prescriptions, doing vaccines. When the COVID-19 vaccine launched, it was madness because we had people, coming in back to back on the COVID-19 vaccine. Then I have like an order came in, so the order has to be processed and put up. That way we can pull out the medications that people needed ordered. And so after all that, working that 11-hour shift, then driving an hour and a half back home, then turning around and doing it again the next day. And I did that for 3 years. So imagine how that was. It was rough on my body. I started having migraines more often. I started having issues with my feet, so I had to get special inserts made. So it can be very draining mentally and physically. And I think I'm pretty young. So I was like, wow, why is my body falling apart like this? And I've only been doing this for 3 years. So it really does wear you down.
Yeah.
Ooh, I was gonna say I got all these gray hairs in the last 2 years of retail, kind of doing the same thing Dr. Shamita just mentioned, starting out as a floater, and they send you wherever they want to send you. You in a district, but that district spans out to an hour, maybe an hour and a half. My days were 12-hour days, so working 8 to 8 or 9 to 9. So not only am I traveling an hour to get to where I gotta go, but an hour back. So really that's a 14-hour day. But one thing that stands out for me was when the COVID vaccines came out, kind of was, and I haven't really shared this with too many people. It was a little bit of a breaking point for me. We initially had started out with clinics in our retails we started out with clinics in which we were doing these vaccines. And then the company decided that they wanted to integrate this into our workflow. So the thought was that we would have a dedicated pharmacist and a dedicated technician that would take these patients in, but it didn't work out that way at all. What was intended didn't happen that way. They brought it into workflow. So in addition to everything we just mentioned, we had 100 people show up for one day with the same amount of staff that we had, also being short staffed and not having enough technicians, and having to work through that, work through something new. Like you said, we're in a global pandemic. There's certain, was social distancing really happening when we had all these people lined up to get these vaccines, right? Probably not. So there's some nervousness that comes with all these people that are around. There's some nervousness that comes with just having something new, having a vaccine new. We're having to give it to people. We're making people sit around for 15 minutes because we really don't know whether you're going to have a reaction or not. Just being a little nervous about it at the beginning. But we went from, we're going to do 100 this week, just 100 this week. And then, by accident, the system's not working properly. You got 60 today, you got 70 tomorrow, you got 40 this next week. We intend for you to do 100 each day. And we're operating as a clinic and a pharmacy at the same time, was just, and then having to be there 12 hours, no overlap being provided. Maybe one day a week you had 2 hours of overlap. And what I'm saying by overlap is another pharmacist actually being there with you to help with some of the workload that's going on. So imagine I'm doing 500 to 600 prescriptions a day, and then we're doing another 100 vaccines a day. In addition to any other vaccines, people start getting scared. So that now everybody wants to get their shingle shot, and everybody wants to get, we're towards the end of flu season, and you got people coming to get their flu shot, in January. So, I was like, man, this is too much. My technicians, we went through the burning it together, and we felt it, man. Like, I was like, I'm going to need to get me a new job. This is not going to work. And that's just being honest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It was a lot, traveling far away from home. I got a family. And when I come back, all I want to do is eat and sleep. And that's not fair to everybody else in my household, Yeah. I don't think patients think about that. We're people too.
Pharmacists matter. Dr. Mariko, anything you want to share about the pharmacist burnout? I know you're in a different industry, but the pharmacist burnout is real, you all, regardless of really what practice setting. I know Dr. Tiff and Dr. Shamita talked about, retail. Shamita did talk about, the pharmacy benefits manager issues there as well. But pharmacist burnout can be real anywhere. I was in the acute care setting. Dr. Mariko, you want to talk about your setting and how you see pharmacist burnout?
Well, actually, I feel blessed because of so I've been in the pharmacy world for about 17 years now. I started out in retail as a pharmacy technician, and then when I went to pharmacy school, I was an intern. So the majority of my experience as a pharmacy technician was in retail, and my experience as a pharmacist has been in the community health center setting. So when I compare my community health center setting experience to my retail experience, I feel like I cannot really complain, because some of the same situations that Dr. Tiff and Dr. Shamita mentioned, I don't feel that here. So I do feel pretty blessed in that I don't have to worry about giving vaccines, because the pharmacy is in our clinic, where we have other staff. In our clinic, we have the doctors, we have the nurse practitioners, we have the medical assistants, we have the nurses. So a lot of them are already handling, making sure that the patients are vaccinated and things like this. So I don't have to worry about that. Our pharmacy normally has 3 pharmacists in the workflow. So there is no shortage unless somebody calls out or someone else is doing something, or maybe around lunchtime. But for the most part, I really don't feel it. So I feel blessed